The Republican president of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, has signed into law the National Pension Scheme Amendment Bill 2023, which of course allows early partial access to NAPSA contributions as opposed to waiting for retirement. Mr. Hichilema said this was in line with his campaign promise to the Zambian people. With this law in place, it means that now those serving with the scheme will be allowed to partially withdraw part of their expected pension.
Mr. Hichilema expressed hope that the new law will give citizens the opportunity to reinvest the funds into various ventures and assets of their choice. He added that as a result, more jobs will be created, contributing to the country's economic development agenda. Now, according to NAPSA, citizens will now be required to update their personal and contact details online to access their early partial withdrawal of their money. Now, joining us from Lusaka is Miselo Bwalya, who is a research fellow, human development. Thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, help us understand what this law means and if this is something that Zambians have been eager for a long time.
Okay, thank you. So the law obviously coming in is off the background of the campaign promises. So, you know, we had an election 2021, and this was one of the key promises that the president had made, that essentially, due to the demand for a lot of young people, the general population, to try to access meaningful finance that would allow them to invest in housing and make other investments, there's been a lot of demand from the citizens to try to access financing. And so during the elections, the president had made a promise that citizens would be allowed to access a part of their pension, so what they had saved up. And so essentially what this law brings in is to allow citizens to access 20% of what they have contributed. Now, of course, there are limitations. So for you to be eligible to access this 20% of what you've contributed towards your national pension, you need to have made 60 months worth of contributions. So that's 5 years. And if you have not made 60 months worth of contributions, then you have to be above the age of 45 to be able to access 20%. And like you rightly explained, the pension scheme has gone ahead and informed citizens that they can access this immediately. And this can be done through an online process, allowing them to access. So the act was only signed or came into being yesterday. And so we expect in the coming days, months, to see individuals trying to access part of their pension.
Wow, interesting to see that there have also been conditions that have been stipulated for this. But let's talk about, I mean, you've mentioned who's qualified and how one can qualify. So I'd like to find out, you know, what the provision is for senior citizens, you know, and in terms of those who have retired, normally, do they have ease of access to the funds that have been saved during retirement? Because what we see in certain parts of the continent is that it's some form of a struggle to be able to access this money that they've saved up over the years, working, serving their nation, and, you know, taking care of their family. So what level of provision is made available for the senior citizens of the country?
Okay, so currently, when you look at the senior citizens, we're coming from a process where we've had multiple pension systems in Zambia. As we move towards privatization and reforming the economy, we then move towards having a uniform pension system. And so in the past, where we've had challenges with senior citizens accessing their pensions have been with some of these pension systems that existed prior to 2000 and are now defunct in a way and have been struggling to make payments or repayments to senior citizens. So a lot of those that belonged to those pension systems have actually struggled a bit to access their funds. The government has periodically come in through the national budget to try to support these pension systems to be able to pay out regularly. But for the national pension scheme that we have now, where citizens are now eligible to get a 20%, it's a relatively young scheme. Was only came into existence in 2000 in terms of operations, has not had any challenges with disbursements. So currently under the national pension scheme, there haven't been any challenges because, like I mentioned, it's still a very young pension scheme, has a very healthy contribution, has contribution ratios of 43 active members for every one retiree. So that's quite a healthy ratio. And it means this pension scheme has been operating smoothly. One of the things to note also is for those that are accessing a 20% pension benefit, what this means ideally is that your overall pension when you get to retirement does reduce by 20%. So it means at the end of the pension, at the end of your retirement period, or when it's time for you to retire, you will only be able to access 80% of your pension. Also, interestingly for Zambia is that the National Pension Scheme does not pay out a lump sum for those that are retiring unless you fail to make what is known as a mandatory 180 months of contributions. So if you get to your retirement and you would have made 180 monthly contributions, you will then be paid a lifetime amount. So depending on your pension scheme, they have categories. So you receive more like a monthly allowance until you get to the point where you die. So the current pension scheme does not pay out a lump sum. I think this might be the practice in quite a number of countries. That was done away with. So we currently pay out a monthly allowance. And like I said, once you withdraw partially, this allowance will then reduce by 20%. So by the time that you get to your retirement.
Well, very interesting there. Of course, I'm sure senior citizens in Zambia will be excited, about this, and some of all of that. But can you give us a picture of what it is like living as a retiree in Zambia? Is this something that, I mean, for someone who is in their 70s or maybe 80s even, is this something that will be life-changing? Do you see that this would have a great impact on the living standards and health and some of all these things, of senior citizens in Zambia?
Okay. So firstly, one of the most important things has been the background and the motivation to this. The background and the motivation to this has been that citizens have been unable to build homes that provide part of security during your retirement and access meaningful investments. And so that has also impacted the life of retirees. It means by the time people get to the retirement, they do not have any housing to build security. And what that does for you is it means from the little monthly allowance that you receive, you would then have to spend, which is meaning even during retirement, you have to pay rentals, which then erodes the quality or the amount that you then receive. And that has provided various challenges for retirees. And part of allowing citizens to withdraw these amounts early is to ensure that they then make these investments themselves while they are still young. However, we have a depressed salaries, so generally wages in Zambia still remain low. And when you talk about accessing a partial withdrawal, you're basically accessing nominal amounts of what you've contributed. So understandably, the wages are still very low. And what you then have there is accessing low amounts because you are only accessing from what you've already contributed. So if it's 20%, it's 20% of what you would have contributed. So if your wages are already low, you basically be accessing small amounts. And these also are concerns that other citizens have raised as to whether we are allowing individuals to access sums of money that will allow them to invest, or they are accessing sums of money that they'll basically use to top up on their routine consumption. And what that does is if the amounts are so low and individuals are only using them to top up on routine consumption, it then affects them because you are basically reducing from what they would benefit in the future. So there have been concerns around that. As an institution, we've been involved in providing evidence and support to the government. And part of our recommendations have been the government needs to actively step in now and provide sustainable investment options. As you know as well, in terms of our financial landscape in Zambia, it's not that fully developed, and there are not that many investment options that are readily available for the citizens.
Yeah.
So one of the things we've recommended is that government steps in as individuals receive these partial benefits. They have options that allow them to invest this money so that it provides further protection for them.
Well, we'll see how it turns out. Congratulations to Zambians and to senior citizens in Zambia. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We'll love to speak with you again on other issues.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.